All right, so what are we talking about? When is it reasonable and appropriate to use physical intervention with a student? Well, you should prevent a student from doing an act of wrongdoing, okay? But not all acts of wrongdoing are going to rise to the level where you should use physical intervention. How are you going to know the difference? Well, you can use it to stop a disturbance that's threatening physical injury to self or others. You do have to protect yourself. You're allowed to protect yourself. You do have to protect other students, and you certainly can act to help protect other staff. You can act physically to obtain possession of weapons and other dangerous objects that are within the control of the student. You certainly can use it for self-defense, and you can use it to protect persons and property. And you can use it to maintain discipline to a point, but once again, if it's just a discipline issue, you probably want the school's disciplinarian to be the one to step in. So one question might be, can you restrain a 5th grader from leaving a school campus? And the answer is no. What helps you make that decision is, are they a danger to themselves or others if they walk out the door? Well, 5th graders can generally cross streets okay. Now, if you're someone who cares for students with special needs, and this is a high school student who cannot safely cross a street, definitely you will be fine to use physical intervention to protect that child from themselves or from somebody else. Okay, one quick scenario. You are assigned to watch the hall during lunch, and you're told that no students are to travel through the halls without a pass signed by a teacher, and it's 10 minutes after classes have started, and you notice a student wandering the hall. And you ask that student to stop, and he ignores you and continues walking down the hallway. Could you physically restrain this student? You cannot. Okay, there's no justifiable reason to do that here. And in this scenario, the way it wraps up, this person grabbed a hold of the kid, got emotionally involved in the situation, in my estimation, and then it's very hard to justify those actions because, well, that person went way overboard and that was really unnecessary. It doesn't meet any of those protecting the child from themselves or someone else. But how are you going to recognize this child abuse? We talked about it looking like a regular physical injury. Well, usually child abuse has a bigger picture. It's not just a bruise, okay? It's the bigger picture of the child's life, the child's emotional well-being, the child's circumstances. And so generally, physical indicators of something like physical neglect is abandonment. It is not okay for parents to turn minors out of their homes and tell them to just fend for themselves. It's not okay. That's abandonment, and that is a social services report. They are under the age of 18, maybe 17. They may not, social services may not be really interested in that report, but you may still be obligated to make it. Unattended medical needs, it's not okay in the state of Colorado to neglect medical care for something that is life-threatening or limb-threatening, regardless of your faith, your religion, or your opposition to medical care. However, if you find that somebody can't go to a doctor because they just need resources, we want to be there. We want to know about that in the health office. We want to step in. We want to provide resources. We want to fill that gap so that it's not a medical neglect situation. Consistent lack of supervision, consistent hunger, we see that in the health office. We see students show up just to get food from us. And then we have to start thinking about the whole picture with the student, not that one thing, because love and logic says you should send your child to school if they never get themselves up early enough to have breakfast. Okay? So once again, we want to look at the big picture. No one item on here is a for sure wham, that is what physical neglect is. They list head lice here, and certainly head lice could be part of a whole picture of physical neglect. But head lice in and of itself is something that any family can get through no fault of their own, and is definitely not evidence of physical neglect by itself. But if this child had a distended stomach, was emaciated, consistent hunger, this is a very neglected child. Physical abuse is unexplained bruises, various staging of healing, could be human bite marks, bald spots from hair pulling, unexplained burns, particularly in the shape of cigarettes. I don't know why abusers do that, but that is common, not uncommon. In abusive situations, unexplained fractures, lacerations, or abrasions, and then you just get a whole slew of behavioral indicators from kids who are suffering from abuse and neglect issues. Sexual abuse, you might have indicators of torn, stained, bloody underwear, pain, itching in the genital area, difficulty walking, sitting, venereal diseases, frequent urinary or yeast infections. And I want to make a side note on that, because that in and of itself, in a young child, female child, say first, second grade, just because they haven't learned proper wiping, urinary tract infections are not at all uncommon in children. So once again, one condition in and of itself is not an indication of the entire child abuse picture. And then it's important to note there's often no visible indicators. And emotional maltreatment might look like speech disorders, delayed physical development, substance abuse issues, ulcers, asthma, severe allergies. And once again, anybody can have ulcers, asthma, severe allergies, those issues, and certainly not be subject to emotional maltreatment. When should you report? Well, the law says you are to report immediately. Okay, well, you're in class and you're supervising a group of kids, and what are you supposed to do with that? Well, the buildings, or the district, is working with the Larimer County District Attorney for a new procedure for next year, because the district attorney wants to set up a standardized reporting plan with all agencies that he works with in Larimer County. And so what that's going to eventually look like is there will be one person in every school who's the facilitator for child abuse reports, who gets the paper copy, who's supposed to help you make the report, who will help you get somebody into your classroom and give you a break so that you can get out of there, get to a private phone so you can make a phone call in private. And look for that to be available next year. In the meantime, don't hesitate to come down to the office and ask us, what to do in the event that you need to make a report if you need help with that. And don't hesitate to buzz the office if that's your procedure, to get someone to come and give you a break so you can make a report, so we can get help in there so you can get out. Because the law does say immediately, and it says if you are not able to immediately make the report, that you must cause the report to be made. So we'll talk about that again in a minute. If you have questions about whether or not a situation really is abuse, I don't recommend that you just start a discussion with various people around your building and take a vote. What you really want to do, if you're really unsure, is talk to social services. Okay, you can call them and say, I'm just not really sure if I should make this report or not. This is what I see. And then document everything they tell you. Even if they tell you not to make the report. If they say, well, you don't really need to file a report for that, use that form, because it has the number on it. That's where you're going to get the number. And write down, the child's name and the facts. Write the conversation. Write the person you talked to. Write the date, the time, and keep it. All right, just so nothing ever comes of it. And here's what we said about making a report. If it's not possible for you to do it immediately, then you must cause a report to be made, and that will be a little easier situation once we have those facilitators in place in every building, somebody who could potentially make the report for you. But I see that person more as someone who will step into your classroom so that you can make the report. Because what somebody else cannot do for you is report something they didn't hear. If you're the only one that heard something, a direct statement from a child, really social services is going to want to hear that statement from you. Okay, we don't do third-party reporting. Sometimes we get calls from people in the community who want us to make a report based on what they're telling us over the phone. And we're very clear with them that we cannot do that, that they should, in all good conscience, make a report based on what they're telling us. We'll give them the number, but we cannot make that report for them. We cannot third-party report. And the report must be in verbally and in writing. So after you get done making the phone call, that's the verbal part, passing on the information on your form. Then you have to turn around, send a copy of the form to the district social worker in charge of child abuse reports, that's Julie Ward, and send a written copy to the address on the form at the social services office. Always do those two pieces. And if you were to look for school district policies related to child abuse, you would find them under the JLF and JLF-R sections of the school policies, and those are on the website if you want to read those personally. And basically what they say that's important for you to understand is that you cannot conduct an investigation. All right? Generally, school personnel never call home or contact other people related to the circumstance in order to investigate a situation which is suspicious of child abuse or neglect. Sorry, I'm in the second part. You also cannot interview. None of us are trained viewers. If you are the only one who gets a statement from a child, you could find yourself in court on the stand giving testimony to the information that you got from that child. And even when you do it correctly, that could happen to you, potentially. Okay? But if you do an interview and you ask leading questions, you ask the wrong questions, okay? You put words in the student's mouth. You put ideas in the student's mind. Just because we're not trained interviewers, that testimony is not going to hold up in court. Okay? And worse than that, now there's not even a case that social services can make because that child's statement has already been muddied by us. All right, once again, do not investigate. However, and obviously you don't go to the house and visit either. I did put an asterisk there for health office staff because we're the exception to that because we do have to follow procedures for routine follow-up for injuries. So if I have a child who comes to school with a laceration that the parents did not take care of the night before and the child reveals facts about how that laceration occurred that makes me suspect abuse, I still need to call home and let the family know they need to take him to get stitches. Or if they have signs of concussion, that they need to take him to the doctor and have their concussion checked out. I'm not going to ask how this happened because I'm already suspecting child abuse. They can certainly volunteer any information that they want to me when I call to tell them what I see. Okay? And then when you go to call social services, they want to know what you did too. And they'll ask you for specifics. Well, what did the parents say? Did they say they would take them? You know, so they do want to get those facts from us as well because they will follow up and make sure the parents did what we recommended as well. All right. Okay, that concludes our presentation on child abuse and neglect for today.